Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard, and welcome to LifeSpa.com, where we prove the ancient medical wisdom of Ayurveda with modern science. And today, I want to talk about one of the newest diet books called The Plant Paradox. It's becoming very popular, and I want to talk about it from the Ayurvedic perspective and give you my take on it. You know, one of the statements in his book I want to read to you, which kind of threw me for a loop. The next time you order a fruit salad for a healthy breakfast, I suggest that instead you order a bowl of Skittles candy. It's the same poisonous stuff. This is another low-starch diet in disguise, and the disguise is that we should not be eating any lectins, which are anti-nutrients on our foods. So, and lectins are generally harder to digest, and his suggestion is that they're causing a lot of digestive irritation and weight gain and all the things that make us feel bad. I feel like I've been down this road before. I wrote the book called Eat Wheat and debated that book a couple of times with Dr. David Perlmutter, the author of Grain Brain, another low-starch diet. And Dr. Steven Gundry, who wrote this book, The Plant Paradox, I think does a better job. I think instead of just blaming wheat, he blames all grains and all beans and many seeds and nuts and nightshades and things like that. And because they have these anti-nutrients on that we just simply can't digest. He does suggest that we can slowly reintroduce them after we heal the body by taking them out of diet, which I did like and appreciate. I think that's the right thing to do. I always suggest that if you can't digest wheat and dairy, don't eat wheat and dairy. Let's get the digestive system fixed up. Let's reboot that. Let's get it stronger, and then reintroduce whole food versions of them and eat them in season. And that's he does talk a little bit about season. He says that fruits, the Skittles candy type of a thing, should only be eaten at the end of the summer when fruits are harvested. And he doesn't make the case, but starches are the same. Starches are harvested in the summer, fruits are harvested in the summer. So many things that will make us fat and boost immunity and give us storage of energy are harvested at the end of the summer for winter. This is something that I wrote about in my book, The 3-Season Diet, Eating Seasonally, in 2000. I wrote it in 1998. So it's a very big part of Ayurvedic medicine is understanding that we live in sync and harmony with the natural rhythms, and the circadian clock inside of us has to be respected. And eating seasonally is a really important thing. I wrote an article about this, and at the very end of the article I said, what if we just ate whole foods, which means nothing processed, and most of those whole foods were in season? Sort of, I think, the direction of where this book of Dr. Gundry is going. Because I think you get many of the same benefits if you just stopped eating the processed food and the refined foods, and you ate them in season, mostly in season. I always say, don't think about what you should not eat, which this book is all about, what you should not eat. It's what you should think about. You should be thinking about what we could eat more of, and that would be a way better way to go. So back to the plant paradox. This is my critique on that book. What I think is basically good, and I think when people do it, they're going to feel better. So it's not like I'm against it. I wasn't against Grain Brain. I think there's value in that. But once again, if you just take foods out of the diet and don't fix the real problem, you end up dealing with that same problem down the road. Taking wheat out of the diet, the $16 billion gluten-free industry. We just kick the can down the road, and now the next diet is don't eat any lectins and any anti-nutrients and any nightshades, or basically any potatoes or tomatoes or starches or fruits or anything, unless a little bit in season, which again will help folks feel a little bit better, but we didn't fix the real problem. And that's what I really think we really need to do, is fix the real underlying problem. Before I get to that, I want to talk to you a little bit more about what he suggests. He also suggests that many of the nightshades and beans and tomatoes and zucchinis and things like that were actually originated in South America, and they didn't hit the Western stomach until about 500 years ago, which is not enough time to create a gene to express a gene to be able to digest those. So we simply just don't have the genetic ability to digest cucumbers or tomatoes or eggplant or any nightshades really of any kind at all, and beans and things like that, because they came from South America and not Asia. Well, I wish that were true, but it's not. Ayurveda medicine talked about eggplant in the Rig Veda 6,000 years ago, and there was Asia. Mung beans, garbanzos, Asia, India, wheat, grains, barley, Africa, Asia, ashwagandha, India, Asia, so a nightshade. Golgi berries, a superfood, a nightshade, Asia. So these foods have been eaten for many thousands of years, not just 500. So I really feel like that's not really fair to say that we don't have the genetic ability to digest a cucumber or some of these foods. I think that we do. We have a situation where a lot of folks are saying that, we only started eating wheat 10,000 years ago when we started agriculture. Well, they found gluten in the teeth of ancient humans. The University of Utah did a research study, and I wrote about it in my book, Eat Wheat, 3.5 million years ago. In Asia, they were making wheat flour 23,000 years ago. They started baking bread 16 plus thousand years ago. And it was because they were baking bread that they wanted more wheat. So that's when they started to grow their own. So it was the actual baking of bread that started everybody wanting to eat more grain. So we're talking, people say we only started eating 10,000 years ago. We have 6,000 years in one study, more than that, 23,000 years ago in another study. And in Africa, 3.5 million years ago. And the other piece of the puzzle is this is a low starch diet. If you look at the recipes in this book, it's basically another low starch diet. So what does that mean? We should not eat any starch. You eat a lot of starch, you're going to gain weight. In America, no one wants to gain weight. Everyone wants to lose weight. We overeat starch. We've overeaten starch. So therefore, you take away starch out of the diet, you're going to lose weight. You're going to feel better, and the diet's going to become a bestseller. I wrote a book called Eat Wheat. People say, you gain weight when I eat wheat, and they didn't really read it because I talked about fixing your digestion. I talked about eating it in a whole grain form. I talked about eating it in season, eating it not 3 times a day for the rest of your life. I talk about eating it in moderation, the way it was traditionally done. And our early ancestors, researchers believe about 1 to 2 million years ago, expressed a gene called, for us, our body, making its own amylase, a digestive enzyme exclusively engineered for digesting starch. So once again, I got to say, why do we have a gene for digesting starch if we didn't eat starch historically in an evolutionary sense? So here we go down the road again. What if we take all the lectins, beans and grains, many nuts, many seeds, all the nightshades, out of our diet, potatoes, tomatoes, zucchini, golgi berries, ashwagandha. I mean, I wrote a book about, oxalates, and not a book, but an article about the toxic foods and how important they are for our gut immunity, which regulates about 70% of our immune system. And we have an immune system because we ate things like nightshades, which were, challenging for us to digest, and oxalates and goitrogens and nightshades and lectins and phytic acids and other anti-nutrients that protect the seed, protect the grain from being broken down by bacteria or viruses or whatever. We ate those foods and acquired an immune system to protect ourselves against the woes of those hard to digest foods, the things that protect the seeds. We evolved to pull that off. And we have, and as a result, we have an immune system. So new studies are now emerging from the $16 billion a year gluten-free industry. And they found out that when 2 big major Harvard studies found out that when people actually eat the least amount of wheat, gluten, in fact, in particular, they have the highest risk and rate of heart disease compared to people who eat the most wheat. People who eat the most wheat have significantly less type 2 diabetes than people who eat the least amount of wheat. Those are two big Harvard studies, both 30 years in the making, both over 100,000 people, right? And they came out just after my book, Eat Wheat, came out. In addition to that, another article that was really about this idea that if we take away all the hard to digest foods and we don't fix our digestive strength, which broke down, and I'll tell you why in a minute, if we don't fix that, what happens to our immune system, which we evolved because we ate some of those hard to digest foods? Well, the studies are now showing, it's called hormesis or the Hygiene Hypothesis, which suggests that these hard to digest foods triggered an immune response. And when you take those foods out of the diet, bad things happen. So I wrote an article called The Dangers of a Gluten-Free Diet. So go to my website at lifespa.com, check it out, read those articles with all the science references there. And it suggests that people who eat the most wheat compared to people who eat no wheat had 4 times more mercury. People who eat the least amount of wheat, right, had 4 times more mercury in their blood than people who were wheat eaters. So people with the most wheat had 4 times less mercury than the people who were gluten-free. People who were gluten-free had significantly more negative bad bugs in their gut and less good bugs in their gut than people who were eating wheat. Another study showed that people who were gluten-free had significantly less killer T cells, which is a measure of your immune strength, than people who were wheat eaters. The science is beginning to pile up, suggesting that it's really not a great idea to just take food out of your diet and then just because people feel better think you solved the problem. I learned that when I got into practice in 1984 and I told my patients, hey, don't eat wheat, don't eat dairy because they're hard to digest and you're going to feel better without them. And they did feel better without them. But then 6 months later, they'd come back and they say, my problems are back. I still have the same problem now when I eat other kinds of things. And you take more stuff out of the diet. Or I would have patients come in with their allergy test. They would come in with an allergy test with a list of foods they shouldn't eat. And then they would come back 6 months later with a brand new list of foods from the new allergy test that they can't eat. And it was different. It wasn't the same allergenic foods. So we keep stacking up all the foods we're not allowed to eat. We keep taking more and more foods out of that without asking the very simple question, which traditional medicine did for thousands of years, Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, which is to fix the problem, your broken down digestive system. And that's what I take you through in a journey, my Eat Wheat book. And I've written tons of articles that are all free on my website at lifespa.com where you can read about how to do that. I put it all out there for free for you guys how to do it from a traditional kind of ancient wisdom, modern science way, tying those two things together. So why do we have a broken down digestive system? Is it because we eat out of season? Not exactly. I do believe that we should eat in season mostly. I publish a free recipe book, grocery list, and superfood list for every single month of the year because nobody read my 3-season diet book. So I put it out for free every month for folks to get tuned into what they should be eating more of in every single month of the year, including the flowers that are harvested throughout the summer in each month. And you can gain all the cool things and benefits of eating certain flowers in the seasons. So that's available for you for free, and I highly recommend getting that. But at the same time, I really think that the big problem started in the 1960s when they told us cholesterol was bad, and they replaced the cholesterol with polyunsaturated, highly bleached, boiled, deodorized polyunsaturated fatty acids, and our omega-6 ratios shot up and our omega-3s dropped down. But the processed nature of those oils, they put them in bread and made bread last on the shelf for a month. They put it in crackers and candies and power bars, and they sit around forever. They never go bad. They don't need refrigeration anymore. Remember, that was a thing, like refrigeration, because things would go bad. Things don't go bad anymore. Why? Because they put all these highly processed oils in them that no bug or microbe will ever eat, and therefore they're preserved. They have extended shelf life, not your life, the shelf life extended. So when you eat those foods, the bread that has the oil in it that doesn't ever get hard, where does that oil go? It goes to your liver. Do your bugs eat that oil? No, they won't eat it on the counter and they won't eat it inside of you. So where does it go? To your liver. Number 1 abdominal surgery in America, gallbladder removal surgery. What does the gallbladder do? Makes bile. What does bile do? It's a Pac-Man cleaning toxins out of your liver and cleaning and scrubbing your intestinal villi. Your intestinal barrier, leaky gut, is completely protected by the amount of bile that you make. But you eat all this garbage oil that clogs up that goes all right to your liver and creates bile sludge, which is a medical term. It blocks your ability to make good quality bile. No bile, which is also a neutralizer for the acid in your stomach. You make a bunch of acid to cook gluten and dairy and wheat and anti-nutrients and lectins. All of those require a very strong digestive acid. But you've got a bunch of processed foods stored away in your liver, ingesting your liver, and your pancreatic ducts and your bile ducts are all full of sludge. Your stomach will simply not make the acid because there's nobody there to neutralize it. So the green light to let the acid leave your stomach just never turns on. Your stomach might initially get heartburn because you're holding on to the acid for a long time, but after a while, your stomach just says, I'm not making it, because you guys don't have anybody to neutralize it. And if I let the acid go in the intestinal tract, it'll rip everything to shreds, cause real problems, so we're not going there. So the stomach will just slowly stop producing the acid, and that is why we have vulnerability to SIBO, undesirable bacteria in our gut, infections, all types of inflammatory conditions in our intestinal tract, plus that's the reason why we can't eat wheat and lectins and grains and nightshades, because we didn't and we haven't broken those foods down the way they have been, the way we were designed to break them down. That is the beginning of our immune system. That is the beginning of our detoxification system, and it's our first protective barrier from the outside world. When we lose that capacity, we're in big trouble. And that happens when you eat a bunch of processed, refined, junky foods that clog up your liver and gallbladder. You add pesticides to that, which kill the bugs, right? They kill the bugs in your mouth that make the enzymes to help you digest wheat. That's hard science. I've written about that in my Eat Wheat book. So the pesticides don't help, the glyphosate doesn't help, the BT toxins don't help, a lot of things that don't help in our culture and our diet, which is why, more importantly than anything else, we need to make sure that we have a good, strong digestive system, because that is the same system that detoxifies us. So if we can't digest hard to digest foods, we can't detoxify well. And there's mercury on every organic vegetable, from the coal mine plumes, from the coal electrical fired plants, that you can't get rid of. You can't grow organic food because the mercury is in the atmosphere. Even the glyphosate's in the atmosphere. So you have to have a strong digestive system. So just saying that don't eat X, Y, and Z is, once again, kicking the can down the road, setting us up for maybe way more severe problems down the road. Just like when we took cholesterol out of our diet, heart disease didn't go down, it went up. And we don't just have heart disease now. We have a epidemic of diabetes. Blood sugar starts in your liver. We have an epidemic of depression. Fats, not able to deliver the fats because your liver and stomach, that coordination is broken down, means you can't deliver fat, which is your stable fuel supply, which means you're up and down in energy, can't sleep at night, don't have good mood, all kinds of bad things happen. In addition to that, we become obese because you're not getting rid of the bad fats, you're not delivering the good fats, you're storing it all. That's what happens. So a lot of things happen from that don't eat cholesterol myth. And now we're digging out of that, and we replace that cholesterol, which is just good old-fashioned saturated fats, with all these highly processed foods. Not to say that tons of saturated fats are good. That's another story. It's just that the processed replacements were toxic and poison. Gluten-free foods are generally highly processed, toxic, and poisonous foods. It's a $16 billion a year industry. Did the gluten-free era diet change our diet for a lot of people who are trying to be healthy? You bet it did. Not eating lectins, which means no beans and no grains and no rice and many seeds gone, fruits gone, potatoes gone, sweet potatoes gone, ashwagandha gone, goji berries gone, eggplant gone, all the nightshades gone. There's a lot of what we call hygiene hypothesis there, foods that might irritate and strengthen your digestive system, and you take them out of the digestive system. What is the future? We're not looking into the future. We're just looking to how can I get symptomatic relief for now, blame the food, take the magic bullet, take the magic pill, and fix the problem. So I love it. And I think Steven Gundry is a great guy. I think that he's going in the right direction. His next book is about seasonal eating. It's something I wrote about 20 years ago, which is, I think, great. I think he's going to discover that it's okay to eat some of these foods in season, and I think that's where he's going to end up. He hasn't quite gotten there yet, but he talks about it on some of his podcasts, and I think that's where he's going. I'd love to have him on podcast and sort of bang this out. because I think he is going in the right direction. I do think he's actually quite brilliant. But some of the stuff that he says, I think, would be great to talk about. Like, why do we have amylase? Why did we express a gene for digesting starch? We've been eating wheat for 3.5 million years. Hunter-gatherers ate it. Some of these nightshades were major parts of Ayurvedic medicine and some of the medicines and some of the foods that were eaten traditionally throughout Asia. So how can we just say that we only ate them for 500 years? I don't think that is a good explanation as to why the lectins and the seeds of fruits are so challenging. And apples, for example, he doesn't really like apples either, but apples are things that we have been eating for a very long time. Yes, they've all been hybridized, but they also store really well. And in a root cellar or something like that, in the cold, they can store and they can last for quite a long time. So they weren't only in the couple of weeks when they were actually ripe. So there's a lot of discussion here, but I think the basic premise is where he's headed is eat seasonally, eat whole foods, re-strengthen your digestive system, and get yourself able to digest some of these hard to digest foods. And do that before it's too late, because if you don't strengthen your digestive system, you're going to be sentenced to having to eat a restricted diet, and that is a dangerous road to hoe, because we don't know the risk of not triggering an immune response in our gut with hard to digest foods that we've been eating for literally thousands, if not millions of years. All right, check out the article. I wrote all about this, lots of science in that article as well, at LifeSpa.com. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard. Do you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe and share.
This recording is brought to you by LifeSpa, where ancient Ayurvedic wisdom meets modern science. Get access to free health video newsletters by Dr. John at LifeSpa.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.